And we are live. What's going on, everybody? Bodylock here live for your post-fight show for UFC 258. Man, that main event was bonkers. Just straight up bonkers. So we're going to go through that. We're going to go through all the fights on the card. If you're just joining us, again, really appreciate it. Drop in the comments. Let us know what you thought of the main event, what you thought of the main card as a whole. I know a lot of people were saying that it was a shitty card on paper and all that. But boys, I think it kind of delivered. I think it, based on what was there on paper, I think it exceeded expectations. What are your guys' thoughts?
Exceeding expectations is a very low bar for this card. So I don't want to go up there. But I do think in hindsight it was a good card. The problem is, in hindsight means you've already paid your money. So that I mean, that's initially what the issue is. When you look at it on paper, does it feel like it's worth your $70? And no, it did not. Watching it now, I'm like, okay, that was dope, but that's we got lucky. So good night though.
Yeah, that's a great way to sum it up, Matt. How, I mean, would you, in hindsight, would you have put $70 on this and felt as confident as well, you know what? I'll just let you take it.
Yes.
Do you think? Yeah.
Okay. Yes, I would have, because the main event alone, like as we're talking about, we're all here for the main event more often than not. And the way the main event played out was incredible to me, because I love to see challengers prove why they're in there. Gilbert Burns did that in the first round. And then I also love seeing the champion answer back to prove why he's the champion. We'll get into that more, I'm sure. But yeah, and then of course the other fights actually ended up being really good. Julian Marquez fight, like that comeback submission, man, we'll get into all that. Yes, I would, to answer the question.
Yeah, and I would as well, but we do have another person we should get an opinion on, and that is Mr. Drake Riggs joining us for the post-fight show. Drake, did it live up to the hype?
What's that?
Did the main event, right? We're talking about we're basically talking about buying the pay-per-view card, and the main event was the main thing that stuck out. Was the main event worth the $70 alone? So regardless of the other fights, Matt said yes. The main event lived up to the hype here. It was worth that pay. How do you feel, Drake?
I feel like it's not fair to ask somebody as easily entertained as myself, who loves MMA so much. Like, I don't think I can give a really good answer to that, but because I'm going to say yes pretty much every time, unless it's just UFC 149 bad, even though that one I don't think was as bad as many people make it out to be in hindsight. But it was worth. Yeah, the main event was everything I hoped it would be. Let's put it that way.
All right, fair enough. So let's walk through this card here. And again, let us know in the comments how you felt about the card, how you felt about the main event, because that was a huge deal. And we will get to any comments and questions you guys have. But starting off with the opener, Maki Potolo versus Julian Marquez, the Coconut Bombs versus Cuban Missile Crisis. This fight really ended up being very entertaining back and forth, and Marquez got the late third round submission. Was there anything in this fight that surprised you? I know lots of things surprised me, but what about you guys?
I mean, just the fight. It felt like four different fights in one. The ebb and flow of this fight was just so dramatic. It was just so all over the place. And to see Marquez enter that third round for sure headed for defeat, like no doubt in anyone's mind. He was thoroughly handled in all arenas leading up to that third round. And he fought like it in that third round. He fought like he only had 5 minutes to sway the judges or to sway the referee into stopping it, to do something to get that win. And that's exactly what he did, just nonstop in his face, throwing and throwing and throwing. And I know I said this during the Fight Companion show, but I'll say it again here. I was just amazed at how right before the finishing sequence, how he threw like that really, really labored bad combination that culminated with that bizarre flying knee. And seconds after that, he is throwing an onslaught on his opponent. So, man, he dug very, very deep and pulled that win out. That was incredibly impressive.
Agreed. I thought it was nuts how well he was able to weather that storm. And this is a great comment that we will get to here. Why are all the best welterweights required to tank damage at an inhuman level compared to other divisions? It's very true. If you think about it, I mean, that's a great example, right? It is in terms of just the ability to eat shots. I mean, in the main event, it's nuts. It's insane to think about how well they can eat shots and still move forward. Is I guess in your guys' opinion, is welterweight the best division of chins, so to speak, where people hold up? Because I mean, we've seen a lot of people get their lights knocked out in other ones, but when I think of welterweight, right, you've got Wonder Boy, who got knocked out once on one shot, but has eaten a lot of other big shots to survive. You've got Usman and Burns, who just went through a ridiculous amount of hell, and normally neither of those guys have been finished or even been rocked. You've got Covington, who had never been rocked unless he fought Usman in the very fifth round. Is this just a division that seems to have really good chins on them?
I think that division, you're seeing kind of like peak level athleticism. Just you have a larger pool of people that can make that weight to choose from, but then also too, man, like they're just so supremely skilled. You got to have this perfect blend of strength and speed and stamina and skill to compete at welterweight. So we're just seeing the best versus the best. Dude, Usman, like, who is taking that belt from him?
Ooh. We will get to that.
Sorry.
Before
I'm
we do,
I'm ahead of myself.
I know. It's hard.
It's literally on my mind right now. So
it's a legit question.
Yeah, no, it is a very legit question. For the Potolo and Marquez fights, Matt, Drake, I know we didn't get to you yet. Anything to add in that regard in terms of that fight? Did anything surprise you other than how crazy it was back and forth?
No, I mean, it played out kind of like I thought. I mean, I didn't expect, Marquez to pull off a Hail Mary submission at the end there, but the first couple of rounds played off like I thought. I thought Potolo would come out swinging for the fences, but the only thing that did surprise me was his dedication to the wrestling and grappling, because we've never seen that from him before. So that was surprising. But other than that, the fight still played out relatively like I thought. He would come out swinging hard first. Marquez would excel as the fight went on. And in a way that kind of played out that way, because he had a hell of a third round, and obviously it wrapped up with a submission. So,
yeah, I pretty much agree with all of that. Pretty much what it was expected, aside from maybe a decently grappling heavy attack from Potolo. And then I guess I was more so surprised that, Marquez I wouldn't really say he looked rusty, because of the fact that just how the fight played out, and with that immense pressure that was put on by Potolo, you couldn't really tell. That was just kind of how the fight went with his plan of attack. But then in the third round, for Marquez to still be fresh enough to, go for the kill and then end up getting it, like, that was pretty impressive and surprising. I wouldn't have expected that going in. Of course, I didn't pick him to win. So, yeah, that surprised me for sure. But a fun fight, definitely.
Yeah, definitely a fun fight. And based on the way that fight went, right? That was Potolo's fight to lose in the last minute or two, and he did. Marquez
definitely lost.
Yeah. No, and no disrespect to Marquez there. I mean, Marquez went out and did what he needed to do, but that was just a crazy fight and a crazy fight ending sequence for Marquez to get that finish. Moving on to the next fight, we got Ricky Simone and Brian Kelleher. And this fight, Brian Kelleher has a giant cut early on. Doctors are constantly looking at it. Ref is constantly looking at it. But Ricky Simone just kind of walked Kelleher down and ate some front kicks to the face like they were nothing. For a guy that got knocked out by Uriah Faber, that's a big, that's a big improvement in terms of just eating a front kick to be like, nah, I'm cool, and just doing what he needed to do. I was not shocked by Simone having the tools to do this, but I was shocked about what he ate and walked through. Am I the only one in that regard?
No, you're not. You're not. He walked through multiple front kicks, like just jaw-shattering front kicks to just go through them like that. It was a little rougher for him than I thought it would be, but the fight, especially in that last, it played out kind of the way I thought it would. Simone eventually just being the better athlete, just being the stronger guy, and the better grappler would be able to just suffocate him on the floor a bit and pretty much eke out a decision. But yeah, it came with a lot more violence than I expected. I'll say it that way.
That's fair, Matt. What did you feel about that fight? Where does it rank to you in the overall card? Because it was a solid fight, but we had a lot of good fights on this card.
It was a solid fight. I think the only thing that kind of dampened or put a damper on this fight for me was the fact that Kelleher got cut so early, because we saw how much that affected how he fought, because he had to spend so much time in that first round just worrying about the blood in his eye. Like, there was a point when Simone had his back and was driving the knees into the back of his thigh, and he wasn't even worried about it. He was doing this. Like, he was trying to get blood out of his eye the entire time. He was getting kneed in the back. And I mean, yes, cuts are a part of the game, but at the same time, it took away a whole lot of offense and, reactions to those sort of things that we would have otherwise seen. So kind of sucked from that regard. He did have some nice moments as the fight went on, but I still thought Simone was going to do largely what he did.
Makes sense. Drake, I mean, anything to add on this one?
I was really annoyed by the commentary right after the cut, just because I felt like that elbow was very obvious and they were just like completely missed it. That annoyed me, just something to nitpick totally. But it was a very good performance from Ricky, definitely. And yeah, to eat not one, but two of those pretty clean front kicks, definitely a testament to chin, despite an awkward loss to Uriah Faber that probably shouldn't have happened. If we're going to be totally honest, Ricky Simone is quite good. And yeah, in terms of where this fight ranks on all of them that happened tonight, I can't judge the first one because I missed the first round. But aside from that, probably the worst fight because it was the most one-sided in my opinion. So not that it was bad or unentertaining, like not entertaining to me, but just in terms of competitiveness, it was a very clean sweep for the Pacific Northwest boy representing Vancouver, hometown.
Yeah, I mean, he did a phenomenal job. Axe, I'm going to get to your question in a little bit when we talk about who Kamaru should fight. But let's move on to the third match of the main card here. Kevin Gastelum versus Ian Heinisch. This one surprised me a bit in terms of Heinisch looked better than I think I've ever seen him look. Gastelum did a great job neutralizing him, taking the fight where it needed to go in order to get that victory. But Heinisch came out and really threw everything he could at him. A couple of flying knees, that one landed just flush and Gastelum walked through and took him down. Another one landed glanced, but seemed to have Gastelum's timing at points pretty well. But Gastelum comes back and looks, reinvigorated here. Looks like the Gastelum of old to just kind of take the fight where he wants it to go. And what did you think of Gastelum's performance in getting past Heinisch?
I think he answered a lot of questions that we had about him. Questions we needed answered, like what was left in him after that war with Izzy. Was he on a decline? He didn't have the best outing against Till. He got caught slipping and was heel hooked by Jack Hermanson. So we didn't really get to see a lot of him. We didn't really see what he had left, but it's very clear if Kelvin Gastelum gets to do what he wants to do, he is incredible. Like the hand speed, the diversity in his attack, the way he can switch between disciplines seamlessly. He is and the thing is, he's at his best. He's a nightmare matchup for everybody in that division. I'm not ready to throw him back into a title fight because obviously it doesn't make any sense right now, considering his previous 3 losses before this win tonight. But he certainly kept his hopes alive. yeah, some with some smart matchmaking, I'd like to see what he can do next.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. Matt, who would you match up Gastelum with? And do you have any thoughts on Heinisch's performance as well?
Right now, I would put Gastelum. Who did I say a second ago? Let me pull up these rankings. I said Gastelum. Again, if they don't, I said Hall. Yeah, if they don't rebook the Weidman fight, which apparently they have for April, they've rebooked that. So give me Gastelum versus who did we say the winner of Derek Brunson and Kevin Holland? That was the other option, right? So yeah, I still like that matchup as a good option for him because I don't want to see him shoot up to the top of the division again just yet. You lost a series of fights. You need to prove that tonight just wasn't a fluke. You need to do it again against a guy that's ranked around you, maybe even a step below. I don't know. I don't know if they want to knock off Edmund Shabazi again, but that's too far down. I think that punching up the winner of Brunson and Holland would be a good test for both sides of that coin, so to speak. So I think that's where it should be.
Makes sense. Drake, do you agree with that matchmaking? And again, what do you do with Heinisch then in terms of him coming off a loss and looking as good as he did? Or if you disagree that he didn't look good, feel free to contradict me there. But what do you do you agree with that matchmaking? And what do you do with Heinisch as well?
Yes, I agree with both of you, Pat and Matt. I love that matchmaking right there. And I'm in the minority here from everything that I've seen on Twitter and the commentary. I did not think that Kelvin looked that great, honestly. I thought that this was, I was probably more impressed with Heinisch, honestly. Like you're saying, Pat, don't shake your head at me. You're giving Heinisch all this love here. Not that I was super impressed with him, but I don't know. I equated this performance a little bit to, and it may be a little harsh, but Weidman's win over Akhmedov. Like Kelvin did what he needed to do to win. I don't know. That is what it is, right? But it was good to see that he could still beat a guy that he needed to beat and should beat in Ian Heinisch. But at the same time, Heinisch showed that he can hang with a notable guy who's been around for a while. So I don't think his stock drops too much. But I don't think that, we should definitely not throw Kelvin way up the line or anything just yet. He got a solid win. And I had some fools coming at me even saying that they thought Heinisch won. So, hey, that tells you a lot. I'm not going to go that far, but there are some people who were coming at me saying that. So that's always good fun on fight night, right? But yeah, I agree with both of you essentially.
Yeah, those are fools indeed. I mean, I am with you that Heinisch, if I'm looking at Kelvin's past performances and Heinisch's past performances, right, I agree. Heinisch looked better overall compared to his past performances than Kelvin did. But yeah, there's no way he won that fight. So those people are fools. But yeah, all right, fair enough. Let's move on to the co-main there with Maycee Barber and Alexa Grasso. This was a very different fight than I imagined playing out, where I expected the clinching, but there was a lot less standing and trading than I expected. I guess I thought there would be a few more exchanges on the feet. Grasso is known for high volume against other strikers, which Barber primarily is. She has gotten takedowns and then done her typical ground and pound, but she is known for her stand up more than anything. Close fight. Grasso got the win. I agree with that decision. Let's throw it back the other way here. Drake, were you shocked by this decision? Did this fight go how you thought it would? What surprised you here?
You know these answers, man. This is exactly how I thought this fight was going to go. It's hard to tell everybody. Everyone was sleeping on Alexa Grasso, the person with more experience, has fought better competition, all this. We're rushing Maycee Barber, everybody. It's typical of what the UFC's done. We've seen it before with Paige Van Zandt, doing it again with Maycee in her last fight, and then this one as well after coming off of an ACL tear and, the time away. I get it. I get why they do this kind of thing. And of course, the fighter's going to say, they're not going to say no to this, but think about the longevity, right? She's still 22, doesn't need it. It's good to test it. I get it, but I don't know. I feel like it still rushed her a bit. Alexa Grasso has been around and is very talented, as we saw. Better on the ground than people may have realized. Of course, against Maycee Barber, I can go a little bit against myself with the argument in both directions, but No, not surprised by this. It was very good to see, though, Barber's killer instinct and ability to, just a little too late in the third round, essentially, right? She was really pouring it on late. She would have started that way earlier, maybe not so much shadow boxing as people were mentioning. That would have definitely helped. But hey, you kind of got to feel out how the fight's going to go, right? So, learning experience for her. She will definitely be back. As I said, still very young, but Alexa Grasso is a player at 125. You guys.
Barber is very young, and Grasso is not to be slept on. That's for sure. Matt, what do you make of that assessment? Is Drake right? Is he wrong? I mean, it was a close-ish fight. Close-ish.
He's right. He is absolutely right. But I think also if Macy Barber came in with a different game plan, if she came in with that third round game plan in the first round, we'd be talking a different story right now. So I think she has the ability to beat someone like Grasso, but you're not technical enough to approach the fight the way that she did in the first and second round. She tried to approach it more technical, and that's just not where she's at right now. So early on, if she expects to have success against, fighters like Grasso, she's got to be more the brawler. She got to be the bruiser who just charges forward and swings a lot of heavy shots. Not saying like leave yourself open for counters or anything, but you got to make fights ugly. And that's what she did in the third round. In the third round, if you just watch that, it looked like she was the better fighter for most of that round. Even though Grasso got some very nice counters in there as well and did some nice clinch work too, but it's just she's still young. She's still figuring this stuff out. She'll be fine. It's just like you guys said, rushing her along too much too early. She's 22 years old. I'm not gonna have this as like a major knock on her career or anything like that. A few years from now, I think she'll be just fine.
This is only her second loss, and it's true that they were rushing her a little bit, but she was ranked higher than Grasso. That is key to this conversation, right? She did beat 3 people in a row before losing to Roxanne Modafferi, and she was ranked number 10, fighting number 15, which Grasso was. So, Ant, do you think that the UFC has rushed Macy Barber, and do you agree with Matt that if she had come out swinging in the first round, she might have been able to take this fight?
So for the first question, yeah, I think the UFC did rush her, and this is something that we've seen all too often as of late, like this desperate need to create stars. So they decided she was going to be a star, so they tried to force her down our throats. And prime placement, like having a co-main event on a pay-per-view card at this stage, just doesn't feel like it makes sense. Just doesn't really make a lot of sense. They gave her prominent placement on the Cowboy and McGregor card for that reason as well, to make sure you see her. So they obviously have some faith in her, but I think they need to build her along a little more carefully if they intend on cashing out on that ticket. Now, I don't think that she necessarily would have had more success if she just came out and did what she did in the first round, because she probably would have gassed out. Like if Grasso were fresh at that moment, was able to outmaneuver her way out of a lot of that. Barber has a thing for shadow boxing. She has a thing for just swinging punches in the air. That would just encourage her to swing more punches in the air and gas herself out. So that third round was born out of desperation. That was born out of knowing that she is going to lose this fight. So she turned it all the way up. And also too, I think it's important to factor in Grasso was trying to coast. She knew she won those last 2 rounds, and she tried to just play it safe. And just keep it in a range where she's not in as much danger. So her mind wasn't on winning the fight at that moment, at least beating the fight out of her. Like that wasn't on her mind. Therefore, she left herself open to that barrage.
Yeah, I'd agree that Grasso was kind of autopiloting on round 3 and was. I'm not sure it would have gone the same way in round 1 from Grasso's standpoint in terms of her countering, and as well as you mentioned, that Barber might have gassed out there. So with that in mind, I'm in report saying that Barber should face a newcomer next, and that Grasso should face Antonio Shevchenko next. So let me ask you this, boys. First of all, do you agree with these picks, and who do you want to see each fighter in the co-main go for next? Let's start with you, Matt, because otherwise we'd never start with you because you're in the middle. So go ahead.
Oh, look at that. Funny how that works. Oh, sorry. What was the
Just
question?
doesn't answer.
You know what? Let's just not start with you. Let's shift.
No,
to-
no,
let's go
seriously,
ahead
what was the
and shift
question?
to-
I got caught up listening to Burns because he just grabbed the mic. So sorry.
Oh, okay.
Kind of tuned out for a second there.
All right. So we're gonna start with Drake.
Okay, there you go. Just do that. I'll
Yeah.
counter
Yeah.
off whatever Drake said.
Drake. We're gonna go Drake and then Ant and then Matt if we feel like it. So Drake, Grasso versus Antonio Shevchenko. Does that make sense? And then Barber versus newcomer. Does that make sense? Who do you want to see each woman fight next?
I think that Grasso should fight I don't know, somebody in the top 10, and Antonina is not currently in the top 10, right? I do not have the rankings up right this second, but I think that she should get somebody, in that 6 to 9-ish range, if Macy was just number 10. So I don't know who's right there. Is Jessica Ai in that area? Viviane Araujo, maybe not that one, but that would be a very fun matchup. I saw that thrown out. I don't think that would make the perfect sense to do right now. You could even do Roxy, I guess, for Grasso. Yeah, somebody in that range, I think, because Grasso should be, she could very well be 2 fights away from a title shot, depending on how they want to treat her at, this co-main event spot, getting this win here. Like, that can take her farther than if she got this win on the prelims or something. And, that Mexican market, just somebody who they could push to the moon if they really wanted to. But, yeah, I would go in that range. And then as for Barber, a newcomer, that seems like a bit much. Even despite saying rushed her, I would say maybe somebody with 1 fight in the UFC. I don't know, off the top of my head, thinking about the flyweights, you could do Meatball Molly, maybe. That could be all right. I know she's coming off of 2 losses now as well. So, yeah, I mean, if you're going to go off of that, based off of that alone, they were both on 3-fight winning streaks and then now lost 2 in a row. That would kind of feel like Molly leaves if she loses, but why not? I might go with that one.
Not bad matchmaking. Let's go ahead and move over to Ant. How do you feel about these? How do you feel about Drake's picks? Hyman Reports picks. What do you want to see?
I do like Grasso versus and Tonia Shevchenko just for just the pure action that can come out of that one. But I think if you're trying to really see what Grasso can offer the title picture, Modafferi is the right call. Modafferi is kind of like that blank canvas that a fighter can just project whoever they are in front of. So Modafferi is a veteran enough to catch the inexperienced in some sort of skillful mousetrap, but she's also not enough of an athlete to really just overwhelm someone who's good. So I think that's a good point to see what we have with Grasso, because clearly I think the promotion was definitely looking at Barber as the one that they wanted to win this fight. If history is any indicator there. As far as what Barber should do next, I'm not mad with newcomers. Like it doesn't have to be just an average newcomer. You bring in some people that you actually think something of. I don't know, someone who won a decision off the Contender Series or something like that. Fine, whatever. But Barber just needs a win at this point.
That's fair, Matt. And any different takes than what has already been said?
Yes.
Now that you're paying attention.
Very different take. And yes, I am paying attention now. I muted Gilbert Burns. I'm sorry. Listen. Okay. So the rankings as they are right now today, Alexa Grasso is 15th. Antonina Shevchenko is 14th. Don't like that matchup. Alexa Grasso just beat number 10 in Macy Barber. So in my mind, you beat the number 10. You are now number 10. So co-main event pay-per-view that did 1 million views, 1 million buys, I'm going to assume, right? she's the hottest ticket in the flyweight right now, today, at this moment. Capitalize on it, jump her another 5 spots, put her in there against Cynthia Calvillo. That's going to be the fight right there for me. And if she wins that fight, you can put her in the title picture immediately after that win.
I like that one too.
Yeah, it's not a bad call. I like Axe's comment here. If Barber takes another, will she main event BKFC against? That might be possible. I will say before we discuss the main event, which we will go to in depth, and Axe has another one: Grasso versus Arujo. I like that one a lot. That was actually my pick. So good call by Axe there. I think that's a great fight for Grasso to really see how fast she can rise up the flyweight rankings, right? Because she's only been in flyweight for how many fights? I want to say 2. Is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that makes sense to see, if she can kind of get fast track there, especially given what flyweight is. For Barber, I really like, at this point, if you're wanting to keep the hype train going, I really like a fight against Alexis Davis, who's lost 3 in a row, right? If you're good, she's ranked number 12.
Leaving the division though, actually.
Oh, okay.
Next fight is back at bantamweight, and I don't think she's going to come back afterward. So
okay, there you go. In that case, if she's not coming back, like Drake just ruined my pick,
that's what I do.
Then in that case, I would love to see her against Ariane Lipski. That's a big fight in terms of Lipski. They were super high on, tried to match her against, JoJo Calderwood initially. Once she signed, didn't go her way, lost against Molly McCann, came back against Isabella De Puerta and Luana Carolina. I know you're cringing, Drake. You're just going to have to deal with it. And then lost and got knocked out by Shevchenko. I think Barber versus Lipski is a good kind of two women that the promotion tried to push, and it's kind of a sorting out, right? Because if Lipski can't get past Barber or vice versa, that kind of gives the promotion an idea of, okay, we can put our chips behind this person to go for. If not, then not. I mean, it makes sense to have those two contenders fight it out. And that's someone who's unranked and makes sense for Barber at this point. Because I don't think Barber should lose her ranking necessarily, but she should probably drop down to 14, 15 at this point. So that's the matchup for me. Let's go ahead and dive right in, and thank you Axe, for saying Barber versus Lipski would be fun at AF. Yes, if they're both on their game, it would be a very fun bloody fight. But let's go back up to Adam C as we go into our main event here. And so I'm going to leave this question here. Let's go through the main event first, and then we're going to answer Adam's question and then get to the other comments. But Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns. This was a fight I don't think most of us expected it to go this way, where it was almost all standing. There was maybe 1 or 2 takedowns that immediately popped back up, and then it was just, straight up throwing leather. In the first round, it seemed like Gilbert got the better of the exchanges, may have hurt and rocked Kamaru a little bit. Second and third rounds, Kamaru just took over and clearly hurt and finished him. I mean, this is, if this isn't a performance that should make Kamaru become more popular and really make his career at this point, I'm not sure what else will do it, because this was not your typical, yes, I'm going to, take you down, hold you down 50-40 for you or 50-45 you decision. This was Kamaru throwing hands and really doing damage against a dangerous guy. So, Ant, is this how you expected the fight to go? What were your thoughts on the main event?
Definitely not the way I thought it would go. It definitely filled in the violence culture, but I just thought it was going to play out a lot differently. I saw a lot of the battering taking place on the ground, Usman being on top of him and pounding him out, and that would probably be after some extended clinch battles, and a lot of positional battles, knee in the legs and things like that, before eventually that fight getting to the floor and Burns just kind of being at the mercy of Usman. To see how Burns was able to start so quickly and really rock Usman a lot. I mean, there was such a difference between the way his body reacted to punches from other fighters that we've seen him absorb to what Burns punches look like on him. To see like him stop in his tracks and almost like a vibration go down his entire body. He was just able to regroup in time to really be effective, man. But that jab that Usman put on in that second round, just laser sharp jab that just kept finding home. And he once he got that jab working, I think Burns' approach this based on power and just trying to get the jump on him, that sort of approach, it just went out the window so quickly. That jab broke him down.
Yeah, I mean, it was a crazy performance. That jab was there all day. Even in round one, where Usman, took some damage and looked to be on the back foot, that jab was still there. Drake, what do you think about the main event here? Because I know Matt's busy watching something else, so we gotta, give him another.
Damn it! No, I'm not. I am listening. I am at full attention right now. My God.
Well, you're going
This
third
guy.
anyway. Drake, how do you feel about it?
Wow.
Yeah, it was fantastic, man. Not quite how I figured it would play out. I thought it would look a bit more similar to the Masvidal fight, honestly. And it's funny just to go back to your comments about a star boosting performance for Usman, right? Like, this is one that, yeah, if this one doesn't help, I don't know what will. But like, I felt like the Woodley one, man, for me, like, geez, just to dismantle somebody that way over the course of 5 rounds, like, you just don't see it in that fashion a lot. So if that didn't do it, and then this one doesn't, man, it's just a lost cause for poor Kamaru. But yeah, this was sensational stuff, man. A champion's performance. Like, I look at it a little bit like Henry Cejudo's win over Marlon Moraes, right? Where the champion goes through that adversity early on. Like, it's not looking good. Not looking very good for the champ. But then just the ability to evolve like mid-fight and make those adaptations to close the show, like, champ stuff right there. And yeah, that jab, just a laser beam. It's funny to think about, like, what's with these welterweight goats that like have just incredible jabs, like, stuff with that. Something about 170 pounds, I guess. But yeah, no, it was awesome. I really would have liked to see Usman play on the ground, like actually get into some scrambles, but very smart that he didn't. He knew what Burns was capable of, didn't even bother. That's what he gets for training with the guy the whole time. And he probably wouldn't even have done it anyways, because he's got one of the best fight IQs in the game, obviously, as we have known. And to go to that as well, the fact that after he got rocked and hurt by Burns and then got Burns on his back and didn't follow him down and took the time to stay active by kicking him and recover while he can't really get too hurt, right? He'll take some shots to the legs and everything like he was, but that was probably the best, like, little mini battle within the battle for me. Was like, that is genius, man. He took some damage. All right, we're in the first round. I can take my time. I'm going to keep him here. If Herb wants to stand him up, he can do it, but I'm going to do everything I can. He took off, like, it was close to like 145 maybe, if I'm remembering. It was a good amount of time. Just genius stuff from him. And then as the fight went on, just took over after that, and incredible stuff. It really was a phenomenal performance from both guys, I would say. I don't think it's a bad loss for Gilbert either.
I'd agree. Based on what Gilbert was able to do in round one, it's hard to say it was a bad performance from him. And we will get to your comments here in a second, because these are some great comments. I can't wait to run through them. But Matt, I know you've been shaking your finger. You've been hyped up now since I called you out. So what do you think about this performance? What are your thoughts on the main event?
Main event was incredible, man. It was incredible. I was shaking my finger at one of the comments because I wholeheartedly agree with it. But we'll get to it in a second.
Oh, I thought you were agreeing with me.
Well, yes, I also 100% wholeheartedly agree with everything you said as well. Like I mentioned at the very top of this post-fight show, I love to see championship fights where the challenger proves why he's there and the champion also proves why he's champion. And we saw both of those things happen in this fight. And that's what made it a great fight, even though it wasn't, a long fight, so to speak. So Burns had those moments, and you could tell that they spend so much time training together. You could tell that because the way that they were both kind of flowing with each other a little bit in that first round too, like the same movements, like they knew each other so well. But as the fight went on, Usman started leaning on that jab, and that jab is just a fucking beast, man. It's incredible to me. I tweeted this out during the fight or right after the fight. A jab is still the most like underutilized tool in MMA.
Fundamentals.
It's crazy how, like, if you would just establish a strong jab, it can just fuck up anybody's night. And that's what happened here. you could see it being used as it can be used in so many different ways, and Usman was using it to literally drop Burns. It's just incredible. He dropped him with that jab 3 times, just incredible. Like if you can have combine it with the power and the timing and just catching your opponent off guard, it's a devastating tool to have. And man, Usman he's just so good, so good. And I do want to highlight the point that Drake made about the fight IQ, because I said that as the fight was happening, like, this is so smart of him to just stay here and work those leg kicks, and while he's still recovering from being rocked by Burns. He's on a different level, man.
Yeah, I mean, Sound of Violence sums it up. Shouts to Trevor Whitman. I mean, just ridiculous and a great performance, great main event, lived up to the hype here. Let's go back to Adam's comment, because I know he asked it a while ago, so I want to go ahead and highlight this, and then we'll run through all the comments here. But let's start with this one. Will Kamaru rematch and beat Colby and Masvidal within the next 12 months? I'm going to throw this to you first, Ant.
I don't think both of them, because I think Colby and Masvidal should be fighting each other. I know they're trying. I think the UFC is trying to make Colby versus Leon now. So that can throw that plan off. And if that's the case, let that fight play out. If Kamaru wants a rematch with Masvidal, as pointless as I think it is from a competitive standpoint, it makes a whole lot of sense money wise for him. So I think the UFC would probably oblige that. They want to do that pay-per-view again, considering how many buys it had. So yeah, that's probably going to be the next thing up. And I think he beats Masvidal again. Colby and Leon, though, I don't know. Like, I don't know if Colby makes it out of that one unscathed. So I don't think that's going to happen. Both of them in 12 months.
That's a fair assessment. I mean, it really comes down to if you believe Colby can get past Edwards, if that is the fight that they make. But Matt, do you think that Kamaru called out Masvidal. Do you think he's going to rematch Masvidal next and beat him and then beat Colby as well?
I don't think that he's going to fight Masvidal next. He shouldn't, because what has Masvidal done to warrant an immediate rematch to a title shot? Send out a few tweets. Nah, bro. Nah, you're not getting that rematch. Sorry. Sorry, not a stuff. well, we're not going to go there tonight. My God. But I would be more inclined to be open to this rematch if they did tie it into a tough season. And I'm only saying that because at least you would have something there, something new to kind of tie into the fight. But I hate tough, so I don't want to see that happen. I don't, and to Ant's point, I don't see him beating both of them again this year. I don't see him having both of those fights this year. It should 100% be neither one of these guys next. And I think we know who the next guy in line is, and that's Leon Edwards.
Strong statement. And Usman Basidi, who just joined us, who won the fight? Kamaru did by third round TKO. It was rough. If you're talking about the main event, talk about another one. Well, we can get into that as well. Drake, I mean, do you think Kamaru fights both Masvidal and Colby and beats it within the next 12 months?
Within the 12 months is the part about this question that makes me say, nah, I don't see that happening. To do 2 rematches this year, and the Masvidal one for me, that's like, please no. Like, I don't think we need to see that again. It's just, I don't see that going any differently. I don't have any interest in doing it again. Yeah, there's the argument for, he didn't have a full camp and all that, but that's going to help Usman too, you guys. Like, it's not going to be one-way traffic. Like, I don't know. It does nothing for me. Of course, people might eat it up for the banter and all that. The Colby fight, I'm much more interested in a rematch there, and Colby very well could be the only guy that could give Usman a real challenge. I'm not going to write off Edwards just yet. I would love to see that one. Those are the 2 obvious choices to say who could beat Usman at this point. The argument against Leon is like, oh, well, he hasn't. It's been a while since he's fought, despite his winning streak. So that makes me a little scared that we would get a Masvidal rematch just because, well, let's see Colby and Leon sort it out. But you can throw Wonder Boy and Masvidal, not Masvidal, Chiesa into the mix with one of these other contenders to sort the picture out fully. So yeah, for the question, within the next 12 months, no way. I would not bet on that.
Yeah, I would agree. The next 12 months is a little bit much. I will say, I think Usman specifically called out Masvidal for one reason, and it's even if that pay-per-view buy rate was off, right? At 1.3 million, it was reported that 1.3 million buys was Masvidal versus Usman. That's what was reported. I don't trust that number fully, but even if it's off by, say, 300,000, which I think is realistic, then you're still looking at 1 million buys. And if you're Usman, that's money that you haven't seen in any other title fight. And that I doubt you're going to get in this title fight. I think he specifically called out Masvidal for that reason. I think he knows that a rematch there probably warrants maybe not 1 million, but maybe 800K or more than most of his fights. So I think it's more of a monetary play for Usman there. I get why he called him out.
It's risk and reward. Risk and reward, man. It's one of the easier stylistic matchups for him in the division, full camp or not. So, yeah, it makes perfect sense that he wants that. Like every prize fighter should be going after the biggest prize for the least resistance, and that's the one right there. Yeah,
100%. And I think that he will fight one of them and beat them. I think they're going to end up making Masvidal versus Usman, even though Masvidal has no real claim to get an immediate rematch. I think he's popular enough, even with things that have happened since that fight, that it makes sense they'll book it because it will probably do well pay-per-view wise. And with Colby, I think you're going to have Colby versus Leon. And even if Colby gets past Leon Edwards, I don't think that it happens in 12 months. I'm with Drake on that, where the time frame is a little much. I think if Colby does get past Edwards, maybe you end up seeing a rematch because Colby's so far the biggest test that Usman has faced, right? Let's not forget that according to the judges' scorecards, had Colby made it out of that round, he would have won. He would have won by split decision based on the way that the scorecards were ranked at the time. So, I think that's what we'll probably end up with. Let's go ahead and run through some of these comments here. There are 2 comments tied together that I want to touch on, and it is one from Town Square Diego. Appreciate you joining us. Does any welterweight have the answer to Usman? Only one I could see giving Usman problems is Wonder Boy, but even then. And then I want to tie this in with another comment that Axe gave with, would you rather see Usman versus GSB or Khabib? So let's put it all together with these 2 comments right now. Wonder Boy, GSP, Khabib. What gives Usman the biggest problems? Who's the biggest threat to Usman's game?
Nate Diaz.
God damn it. Shit.
Okay. I'm surprised he didn't call.
Who is the biggest threat?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Right. That's a warning. That's a warning shot, Drake.
Bullshit, man.
Oh.
That is a warning
Being
shot.
censored.
and Vince G is throwing Colby in there too. So all right, let's throw Colby in there. Let's do that. So we're looking at who has the answer to Usman's to beating Kamaru Usman. Let's just put it that way. Go wide net here. We've heard Wonder Boy, we've heard Khabib, we've heard GSP, we've heard Colby. Who has the best chance at actually dethroning Usman at this point? Drake, even though you had that transgression, I'm going to throw to you first in case you have another one and I have to kick you out. So go ahead.
All right. Well, I feel like the answer to that is pretty obvious, but not realistic to happen. So that would be GSP / Khabib. It would be one of them. And you got to think GSP and Usman were able to do the same. They're very similar fighters in their primes, right? At their very best. They do a lot of things extremely well and are both 2 of maybe the smartest fighters ever. GSP absolutely, and Usman showing that he might get. Yeah, I wasn't serious about Nate. He would get absolutely destroyed. It was a total joke. If you know me, I would hate for that to fucking happen. I feel bad for mentioning it.
You'd be so bad.
I might quit. I might quit. So yeah, I think the unrealistic, obvious choices would be GSP / Habib, right? And even Habib, I feel like not as good of a chance because he's smaller than just an MMA genius like GSP is. Realistically, Colby's a safe choice because we've seen what they can do against each other so far, and that was without even implementing any grappling, which is still a bummer we didn't get to see, but the fight was so awesome on the feet for what it was. So safe pick. But then, man, I'm so fucking intrigued by the idea of Wonder Boy versus Usman. I think that's just an MMA puzzle for each of them to figure out, and that one intrigues me so much. So I don't think it'd be the right pick to choose right now, but I want to see that one very badly.
Not bad calls. Matt, you obviously have some thoughts on that based on that comment. So
no, I
take it away.
think the Wonder Boy fight could be interesting just to see play out, but I think Usman wins it. I think if you're talking about who has the best chance of beating Usman, I think it's GSP. But as Drake said, that is not going to happen. I don't think, because if GSP does come back, he's coming back at 155, as we've seen him trying to lose weight and look super skinny in his social media posts. Although I would say that would be the best. That would be the best one. Is Usman versus GSP at 170 would be incredible just to take in and witness that, because as we know, GSP is the most well-rounded out of any of these options that have been listed. Colby would be fun again, I guess, just to see him get his jaw broken again. But I am really, really intrigued, and I know nobody is going to really give this man the credit of making this fight interesting. It's Leon Edwards, man. Leon Edwards is a hell of a tough fighter. He is no easy out for anybody. He may not win the fight, but it would be a hell of a fight, I think. So hopefully that one gets made next. And one other wild card name, since Drake gets to mention Nate Diaz, I'm mentioning Khamzat Chimaev.
There it is.
Pre-COVID Khamzat goes in there and makes some noise.
That's a mythical creature now.
Yeah, I mean, Adrian Gordon is right there with you, and I can't disagree. Pre-COVID, Khamzat easily wins that fight, but now with COVID, maybe now Usman has a chance, right?
Right?
That's how I feel.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe. And lay it down with your thoughts on this.
Well, I mean, if Matt gets to talk about Khamzat, Drake gets to talk about Nate. How about Nick Diaz? He's the guy.
Even worse.
I don't really see, out of active fighters, I don't see anybody beating Usman right now. I want to give consideration to Leon Edwards because of what he's been able to do, because he was very competitive with him in their first fight. But the thing is, he's just been too inactive. I need to see another outing when I need to see him with his sea legs under him to see what he looks like. And also, too, this is someone who also had COVID and apparently lost a lot of weight and everything else, was very sick. So I want to see him get one under his belt before, standing in front of Usman. Now, that being said, Colby probably. But I think if they have the same sort of fight that they had at UFC 245, man, Usman's got a lot more pop in his hands than he did that day. That jab that he was landing on Colby had a lot more damage attached to it this time around. Colby doesn't make it to that last round if they have that same sort of fight. So that might even be unrealistic. Quite frankly, GSP is the biggest threat, but he's not an active fighter. So until then, it just doesn't, it's just hyperbole. It's just, we're just talking and nothing is going to come of it. So enjoy that matchup on the video game, but that's about it.
Well, I mean, going through these comments, right? Like, and looking at what you guys have all said, because these are all great matchups. And if we're being honest here, I think Town Square Diego has it nailed on the head for my pick. People brought up Nick and Nate Diaz and all these people. That's great. But what about Mike Perry? Platinum Mike Perry. versus the real Nigerian Nightmare. I mean, that's the fight you want to see.
Wow.
I mean, maybe if Usman is a prison guard, but
Yeah.
I just just cussed a lot. Like when I saw it,
I know.
Like it almost just like instantly.
That's why I brought the comment up. Is because I know how upset it would make up. That was the whole point. No,
Dude, I got triggered seeing he got another fight today.
Yeah, I know, right?
Really.
And so here's the thing. I am with Drake on this one, and for those of you that watch, me and Drake are rarely on the same page, but in terms of Wonder Boy, for me is a puzzle I would love to see Usman have to figure out, just because of how well he did against Woodley and what he's been able to do in that division. He's a tough out. I feel like a lot of people kind of forgot about Wonder Boy. Yes, the fights were boring. I'm not going to Woodley versus Thompson 1 and 2 were not fights that you should go immediately watch right now. They are.
Oh, put some respect on the first one.
Right.
Yeah. The first one.
But even the first one.
Good.
Here's the thing about the first one is like there were 2 or 3 big moments, and I want to say round 3 was like good, but if you watch round 1, 2, 4, and 5. It's very similar to Thompson versus Woodley too. Somebody pointed that out to me once. I was like, "There's no way." And I rewatched the fight and I was like, "Oh, it really was."
The second fight wasn't really that bad either, in my opinion. So
it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, it wasn't that bad. Like it was people just being impatient. Is really all it is. They just want to see tornado kicks and and overhand rights the whole time, and like that's not realistic.
Yeah.
But
it's plenty realistic. You haven't watched Michelle Pereira enough, obviously. You need to go back and watch some tape on that, because that's plenty realistic. Yeah. But yeah, no, I mean, yes, no, I didn't think they were that boring either. And when it comes down to it, I think that's the biggest puzzle that Usman hasn't already figured out, right? I think, again, as Colby rematch makes a lot of sense, but I think Usman is gotten so much better since then. I think Edwards is a prime example of a fighter who has grown so much since his last loss was to Usman. And I think he's got a bunch of new tools in his belt. And I still think Usman has grown more and is a better fighter, that I don't see that going too differently. With Thompson, I think that's someone that is kind of overlooked based on a couple of losses here and there, especially the Pettis one. That hurts him so bad when up until he ate that Superman punch. And I'm not saying that Pettis doesn't deserve the win here, because he landed it and knocked out Wonder Boy cold. Up until then, Pettis was getting destroyed. Like straight up his face. I was live in the arena. His face was so red. I was so far up in the arena, and all I could see was here's 2 guys fighting, and one red face guy. And I was like, oh, I know that's Pettis. Like I know for a fact that's Pettis. So I think that's the last puzzle for Usman to figure out at welterweight. GSP would be phenomenal, but even then, he's older now. It's been so long. I'm not sure that it would be as competitive as everyone is making it. Yes, I think he would be able to stuff a lot of Kamaru's takedowns, and his most recent fight was at middleweight, so he's definitely a bigger welterweight. But, I mean, GSP's nearing 40, right? He hasn't had a fight in 4 years. He didn't look particularly amazing against Bisping. He got the win, but I know. But to me, I don't think it's the biggest challenge for Usman right now, when Usman is clearly in his prime, right? Like after tonight's performance, he looks incredible. So I'm all Wonder Boy and Usman. With that in mind, let's go ahead and move on to some other comments here. Let's see. Yes, Nate would get smoked by Usman. Yes, that's correct. Matt, you were on the same wavelength. Let's talk a little bit. This has been brought up multiple times now.
No, wait. Put that on the screen. I need an acknowledgement. All right. Thank you.
Such a diva, dude. Such a diva. But fair. Yes, Matt. You are on the way with our wavelength with our views, which is important. But this concept is brought up multiple times by different people. Iman Report is the latest person to bring it up based on this comment. Usman at 185. We've already talked about this a little bit against Israel Adesanya. We were asked about it in our tailgate show. We ran through that. But Usman versus Whitaker. And let's expand it beyond that because there's a couple other comments about Usman 185 as well. Let's say Adesanya moves up to 205 and he's not coming back, right? Hypothetical here. How does Usman fare at 185 against guys like Whitaker, Paulo Costa, the top dogs at 185? Does Usman hang, or is he too small, or what do you guys feel about that?
He definitely can win some fights there. Probably win some fights against a couple of guys in the top 10, but that still doesn't make it a good idea. You know, there's plenty for him to do at welterweight. I mean, we're all trashing the idea of Jorge Masvidal deserving a rematch, but when you have a fight like that the UFC knows will sell, and will net him a whole bunch of money, and it's such an easy stylistic fight, you stay at 170 and you take that. Like you don't go up to 185 to where, you know, and just fight anybody. Like if they're going to throw him in there against Adesanya or something, or make him versus Whitaker for an interim belt, okay, that's a chance that might be worth taking. But to just be another guy at 185 just doesn't make any sense. So there's plenty of money to be made at welterweight, and that's where he's going to stay.
That's true, but I'm seeing again Axe saying Bobby Knuckles is easy money versus Kamaru, and then Sound of Violence, Usman houses Costa but struggles against other wrestlers.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I mean these are important. Yeah, this is
Costa,
a good conversation.
to me, feels like a bit of a nightmare for Usman, man. That's a big boy with a lot of power, and he would need to get that to the ground. Absolutely.
I mean,
early.
If it was just a sustained striking battle, I think Usman would wipe him, because Costa's not a sophisticated striker at all. But at the same time, if he touches you at that size, it's going to be a rough day. So he certainly would have to wrestle. But why do that? Why, when you can rematch Masvidal?
Yeah.
Why do that?
That's true.
No reason to do it.
Yeah, and we know Nate Diaz would get destroyed, but if they want to give a dumbass title shot to Nate Diaz, that's going to make Usman a whole lot of money. If McGregor beats Poirier in the rematch and he just says, "Oh, I want a welterweight belt," that's going to be an easy stylistic fight for him, and he'll beat him. So as long as all that stuff is out there, no reason to add that 15 pounds and fight monsters. No, thank you.
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100%. And it's not like Usman is a small welterweight. He's a very big welterweight. But the problem is it's a 15-pound jump. It's not a 10-pound jump. So those guys up there are just like Usman's big, and he cuts a lot of weight to get to 170. Those guys cut a lot of weight to get to 185. So the frames are different. That's really the main thing. Like, the frames are different. But I think Kamaru would still have a lot of success at 185. He would just have to approach fights differently, and depending on the matchups, I think it could work out well for him. I would love to see just a fantasy matchup of him at Adesanya at 185. Just like a fantasy matchup. Like, obviously, I could fire up UFC 4 and watch it happen, but like, that's the only way it's ever going to happen. They're too good of friends. Adesanya is going up in weight. Obviously, I mean, it's just not a thing we see. How many times do we see 170ers go up to 185 and have a lot of success? It's just not something that happens.
Robert Whitaker.
Okay.
Robert Whitaker.
Like I said, how many times? I said how many times?
Johnny Hendricks.
Or
Kelvin Gastelum.
Yeah, Kelvin Gastelum. At least
no, don't give Kelvin credit for ever being a welterweight. Okay, let's not do that, because he barely was there ever. So you've given me two names, and you're talking about the best of the best. So let's be real. And I think he's one of those guys that could, like I said, very well do it. He's one of the best of the best too.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to see it happen. I don't think we ever will. I think Ant makes very good comments here in terms of why would Usman do that. But yeah, I would love to see what he looks like at 185. With that in mind, gentlemen, let's pivot here to who is next for the main event winner and loser. So Ivan Report is calling for Burns versus Chiesa. He says that a couple of times. I know we have a couple others here. Let's see. Drop it in, and if you're watching, go ahead and drop it in the chat who you would like to see Kamaru fight next, or who you would like Burns to fight next, because I'm not sure exactly where those comments were, because we've had a lot since then. But I mean, this is a great question, because as we've mentioned, Kamaru has beat pretty much everyone in the top 5 except Wonder Boy. It's called for Masvidal. Who should he fight next? And then Burns, right, had been on a massive tear and did find success against Kamaru in the first round, but got finished. Where does he go? So let me flip it the other way. Drake, let's start with you on this one. Where do you want to see each fighter go from here?
It is kind of tough in terms of Usman, because he has beaten all of these guys already. There, as much as we're like Leon's the next guy, that's the one that makes the most sense, which really does. That is still a rematch too. And then with the inactivity recently, it's like I would like to see Leon get another fight before then, maybe just to freshen up a little bit, but he doesn't need it. He deserves a title shot now. He deserved it, back when right after he beat RDA, right? So it's the Leon Edwards rematch. Will they do that right now, next? Doesn't sound like it, right? They're working towards maybe this Colby fight or getting him another opponent just to get in there, since he was supposed to be fighting soon. That doesn't mean it still can't happen, though, because Usman could wait for that to play out. So hopefully that happens, because I would like to see that all sort itself out, even though I'd like to see Usman fight sooner rather than later as well. But yeah, I'll keep it simple and go with the clear answer, which is Edwards too. As for Burns, I do like the Chiesa one. I think that it's either him or Wonder Boy, right? So unless let's say Colby does get matched with Edwards next for this coming up date or whatever, then you could do Burns and Masvidal, maybe. They've talked a little bit to each other in the meantime. I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen with Masvidal. It seems so unclear about what exactly he's wanting or willing to do now. Feels like he's in a spot where he can call his shots after becoming the BMF champ and all that stuff, despite losing to Usman. So it's really hard to tell with him. But, logically, that would be an awesome fight to see. I would love to see Masvidal and Burns. But more realistically, probably Chiesa or Wonder Boy.
All right. Chiesa or Wonder Boy for Burns, and Usman getting Edwards or Wonder Boy. So Wonder Boy can just be anywhere on Drake's radar.
Yes.
Wild card.
Matt, how do you feel about this one? Match them up with.
I would like to see Burns and Masvidal, but that's really not going to happen, because according to what Ariel tweeted out a little bit ago, that they were trying to do Masvidal and Colby for tough. But now Usman mentioning Masvidal may change that plan, possibly, which would leave Colby out in the wind, looking for someone. So I don't know. I would like to see Burns and Masvidal. If we're just talking about matchups and what I want to see, all the actual things in the works, potential, all this shit I'll decide. Give me Burns and Masvidal. I just want to see that play out. I think that's a good matchup for both. I think Burns is a better fighter. Just better skill everywhere. He's more aggressive at the right times. I just think he's that type of guy to go out there and really shut down a guy like Masvidal, who has historically, although recently he's been more aggressive with his striking and trying to knock guys' heads off, historically he's been a more timid fighter. So it's like, yes, a very valid point. A very valid point. But yeah, I think that's the way I would go. If I had a choice for Burns next, it would be Masvidal. Again, Wonder Boy. Yeah, I'm not mad if you want to throw Wonder Boy against anybody. I love seeing Wonder Boy fight. His style is just so unique compared to everyone else in the division. If he hasn't fought him, or even if he has, sure, go do it.
He's already been screwed, Diego. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, Diego, he really has.
Yeah.
But we hear you there. And I mean, we've run through a couple of these. Who are your matchups for each person?
I think the main question should be, how much time does Usman want off? And I think that will determine a lot of this. If Usman wants to just say this pay-per-view is quote unquote trending well, which I'm sure Dana has said at some point tonight. If that's the case and he gets a big fat payday, maybe he wants to take an extra few months off. If that's the case, put Leon versus Wonder Boy. for the number one contender bout. If Usman is ready to go now, give it to Wonder Boy. I think that would probably be the best course of action. I'm still so as much as I want to see Leon get a title shot, I don't want to see him get it under these circumstances. I want him to have a little momentum under him, like the guy was on this massive win streak, and then the world shuts down, derails his momentum, he gets sick and whatnot, and this Dune matchup with Chimaev taking precedent over everything else. So I want to see that rematch done properly. Now, I do think you need to just preserve Colby versus Masvidal. That should just be its own fight. And as much as Burns versus Masvidal sounds like a fun fight, that sounds like a fantastic fight, I think Covington versus Masvidal has a lot more weight to it. So run with that, run it on tough if you want, but that fight needs to just happen and let that rivalry play out. I'm thinking we're going Joe Silva style matchmaking, and instead of giving Gilbert Burns coming off of just getting finished to Michael Chiesa, who's coming off of a good win, I say give him the guy that Chiesa beat in Neil Magny. So Burns versus Neil Magny.
That's a good matchup. I don't dislike that. I will say, in terms of my picks, I've already talked about how I feel Kamaru should be matched up against Wonder Boy, because that's really the one puzzle I think has yet to be found out. And especially if you do Wonder Boy versus someone for a number one contender match, whether that's Edwards or Masvidal, because I know Wonder Boy has called out Masvidal that way. Either way, right? Because Wonder Boy ran through Masvidal. People keep forgetting that. UFC 217, that was a clear decision. So I think that's the matchup for the champ. But I will go ahead and talk about Gilbert Burns and his matchup. You guys have mentioned some good names. Neil Magny is a good one. Masvidal, Colby, yeah, you could go all those routes. But really what it comes down to is you put Masvidal versus Colby together. You have Edwards fight Wonder Boy for a number one contender spot, or just have him, fight Kamaru next, or whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Gilbert Burns should be fighting Khamzat Chimaev.
Knew it. I
Clear
knew
decision here, right? You only pulled out because of COVID and the issues there. I think that his bravery that he's shown here, he should go ahead and instead of getting the number 3 rank, I give number 1. Go full on. If you're gonna commit to the Khamzat trade, now's the time. Just pull the trigger and just give him a number 1 contender bout, just right off the bat. Just do it, because I guarantee if he knocks out Burns, there you go. It's done deal. Whereas Edwards might have kind of styled on him or made it kind of a clinch fight. Who knows where it goes? That's going to be throwing a bunch of stuff. It's out of violence. Get out of here, man. You don't know what you're talking about. That's a perfect matchup. That's a perfect matchup. Diego does have an actual realistic matchup for Khamzat against Magny. I do like that much more. But Axe, thank you, Axe. Yes, Burns versus Khamzat. There you go. Let's go ahead. Pull the trigger. Pull the trigger. And it's out of violence, Pat. I'm only labeled. If they label it the COVID card, that's fine. Go ahead. Everybody.
God damn.
How many fighters have had COVID? You could make a whole COVID card. Just go ahead and do it.
Probably could, yeah.
Yeah, you totally could. You could put Burns versus Chimaev right up top. So that to me makes all the sense in the world. But no, I mean, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to take that back. I want Burns versus Chimaev. I'm just going to go ahead and say that.
Think about
Y'all can hate me for it. Y'all can hate me. Yeah, I had to think about it for a second. Y'all can hate me for it. All right. With that in mind, we are wrapping up our post-fight show here. Thank you so much for watching. We appreciate it. I know we've had a bunch of comments from subscribers. Thank you so much. Make sure to like the video, hit that bell so you get notifications when we drop new ones. If you haven't subscribed, please do that. Again, we love you guys. This is why we're here. Any last-minute comments or questions, throw them in now because we're hitting on that time. But thank you so much for joining us for the Tailgate Show, Fight Companion, Post-Fight Show. If you could only make one of those, that's fine. We just love that you're here. Axe for up UFC 262 COVID. I love it. That's great. That is yes. Go ahead and book that as the card. Otherwise, again, thanks everyone. Anyone else have some comments? And I'm gonna leave you last because I know you're gonna do the outro in the sexiest way possible. So with that in mind, and best P for P facial hair for Drake.
you, my
little
man.
comment there. Yeah, no, it's
For
a little
sure.
raggedy. Diego's a little
no,
off there,
I'm
but
not
it's okay.
not styled today. No wax. So
No,
appreciate it regardless.
it's far better
give you a
than
20.
mine, so I can't talk. All right, so first we'll start with Drake and Matt. Anything to cap this night off?
I think we should be talking more about one Bilal Muhammad. I thought that was an excellent performance that he had today. That guy deserves somebody in the top 10 now. I haven't never been really sold on him, but he sold me tonight. I thought he looked awesome. I'm very curious to see what is next for him. And if we're going to fantasy book, maybe, well, he called for Jing Liang. I love that one. Even though Jing Liang probably right behind him, right? So kind of goes against what I would really hope for, but he deserves some more love. Bilal Muhammad, I want to give him a shout.
It's a good call. Yeah. I mean, Matt, you have any fight that you want to give a shout out before we wrap it up here, and any other comments?
No, most of my praise for the fights had already been mentioned. Someone did shout out in the chat earlier, Chris Gutierrez, his performance over at Ewell earlier in the evening, which was a good fight for him, for sure. So shout out to that comment. But man, I'm just still like in awe of the possibilities now of what can happen with Usman. As long as we don't do Usman and Masvidal next, I'm cool with whatever happens, really.
All right, Usman versus Chimaev it is. And
It's up for that too.
and actually, before you talk it, I do want to say that big shout out to Bilal Muhammad on that fight. Polyana Viana, I also thought had a phenomenal performance that is underrated. And Fluffy, Anthony Harris, really all the prelims.
Right.
The prelims were solid as fuck tonight. And I can say that because it's after 1:30 a.m. my time. So guess what? If you're kids and you're listening, too bad, because it's adult talk. But yeah, yeah, exactly.
I'll just highlight Anthony Hernandez, getting the first submission win in the UFC over an ADCC gold medalist. So that was spectacular. I mean, that was a wild, sloppy, ridiculous fight. You love to see it. Every card needs one. So thank you for that one. Man, I think right now we are in the midst of something pretty historic here at welterweight. Kamaru Usman today captured the longest win streak in UFC welterweight history. So think about that. When we're talking about all-time greats, this man has already notched a ridiculously impressive statistic. So keep that in mind. Quite frankly, when we look at the version of Usman we saw tonight, we are sitting here struggling, trying to figure out who was going to snatch that belt from that man. And we're saying Wonder Boy. We keep talking about Wonder Boy because that's just the one sort of guy that hasn't been in front of him yet. Man, this guy's making waves. So get on board. I think he's going to hold that belt for quite some time. And Matt, are you about to make a Kamzat joke? Because
no, I'm not. I'm going to make a legitimate comment here because Usman is still.
I was going to though, so that's a good call.
Usman's still on the podium right now, giving his talks to the media or questions to the media, and he did just address GSP. Can I throw out a quote right here? George can still do it. George, I see you still training. If there's potential for that big fight, if George wants to come back, of course, George can cut the line. Absolutely. So there you go.
There you go. You just have to do it after Hamzat. Hamzat versus GSP for number one contender for the welterweight.
You know what? And this might sound like a really silly thought here. And I know he's already done his work, at least for the next thing for this, but George St. Pierre has returned to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. His character is going to be in Falcon and Winter Soldier. So obviously that's already filmed. Maybe depending on the plans for that character, does GSP just say, yeah, I'm cool with this retirement life? Disney has a little extra money now that Gina's gone. So is GSP picking up that bag? We'll see. We'll see.
Might be. It might very well be. And yeah, I mean, I had a comment and I totally forgot it because now I've just been sideswiped by that. But look, with that in mind, let's go ahead and Axe is all about Kamaru versus GSP. I'm all in. I'm not against it. If he came back, I think that would be great. Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this one up, though, boys. Thank you again so much for joining. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. But you know what? I can't say it that well. If I'm being honest, I try, but I can't quite do it as well as Ant. And it's one of the few things that Ant could do better than me. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw it to him.
All right, I'll have to kick your ass for that one later. But so remember, like, subscribe, share, tell a friend to tell a friend, tell that friend to tell 10 more friends. So I'm Matt Walker. He's Matt Wells. He's Drake Riggs. And he is Dr. Pat OJ, CPA, DNA, CEO, PIMP. So you know what you got to do.
Thanks.
Stay beautiful, stay positive, stay Chimaev, and stay sexy. I'll see you when I see you. Peace.